And I'm going to go on mute and let you take over.
Cool. All right. So, Kat approached me about teaching a class on what it takes to be a Kingdom Seneschal. And, well, I ended up with, I got this job in a very interesting fashion. I will say, first, rule one about if you want to be Kingdom Seneschal, don't start it like I did. It, basically, I had, let me see, from the time that they announced who it was going to be to the time I officially took over was supposed to be 7 days. It actually ended up being about 3 hours. And normally, and Brian and Pug, who have been Kingdom Seneschal before, can, and Richard as well, but normally what you end up doing is you're a deputy for somebody for 6 months or a year. You figure out what's going on, and then you step into the job. Every now and then you go a little bit faster, like Pug, when, as soon as Patrick Michael's opponent hit the ground, suddenly Pug was no longer the ER deputy. Some things like that. Mine was, we had a Kingdom Seneschal. He put an ER deputy in who was supposed to be an ER deputy for about a year so she could figure it out. And she knew that in the next 3 or 4 months she was going to be really busy, but ER deputy should be fine. And I think it was like, 3 weeks after she agreed to be the ER deputy, the Kingdom Seneschal stepped down. And Nicolette suddenly was the Kingdom Seneschal. And she knew she couldn't do it full time. So she put in applications and said, all right, somebody's taking over in like 3 months. And that was me. And I found out, like I said, right before I took over. So on a lot of things, rule one, have good people to talk to. I say flat out, I could not do this job without the help. Brian has been amazing. Being able to go to various and sundry other people who have been in positions of authority, whether it's Kingdom Seneschals, regionals, society, whatever. Hug, Nicolette, friends from other kingdoms. Mafanui has been a wonderful person to be able to vent to every now and then. But have good people that you can rely on. That has made it so that I have anything I've been able to accomplish as far as making things work and all that, I say flat out, a good 80% of it is because I had really good people, and about 2 or 3 times a week, Brian gets an IM from me going, well, what are they doing here? Why are they doing this? And we figure it out from there. What I have discovered as your duties as the Kingdom Seneschal, our job is to make sure that the kingdom keeps functioning. That's it. We are not game side at all. If so-and-so doesn't like so-and-so because they got an award or because somebody's doing something like that, not my problem. Don't care. And it's not that emotionally I don't care about my friends. It's because, to put it bluntly, I don't have the energy to do it. We've got to make sure that events happen, practices happen appropriately. Or as we've discovered in the last 4 or 5 months, things don't happen if that's appropriate. We figure out what is possible legally. As far as the emotions are concerned, you have to absolutely divorce yourself from that part of it. And it sucks, because sometimes what that means is you get to go tell a very good friend of yours, sorry, you can't do that. And sometimes that's a very good friend who happens to be wearing a very big hat. With the 2 crowns I have worked with so far, luckily, most of the time I have not had to be, horrible with them, and they have not been horrible to me. Everyone's gotten along. We've all, they've been easy to work with, for lack of a better phrase. But, one of the warnings that Brian gave me when I said, so I'm thinking about doing this, he said, understand sometimes, and if I misquote it, Brian, please tell me, but I believe the quote was, sometimes you have to read corpora to the crown every night like it's a bedtime story. And because sometimes,
Like a bedtime story.
see, I did quote him correctly. But that is, unfortunately, that is part of the case. Is every now and then you have to tell somebody, whether it's a crown, whether it's, a local seneschal, whether it's a baron or baroness, whoever, periodically you have to go, no, you can't do that. And here's why. You know, I I say one of the very first things you have to do when you become king of Seneschal is you go read kingdom law, go read society law, go read corpora, and then go do it again about 8 more times. Um, it is very much, there are things where about 3 or 4 times a week somebody's going to send you an IM or an email, or give you a call and say, hey, can we do X? And sometimes the answer is obvious. You're like, no, really, you can't do that. What are you thinking? As friends have heard from me periodically, when I write them back and I go, somebody wanted to do this, and Mafanoui at least more than once has written back, what are they smoking, or something to that equivalent, because you're just like, really, people? But then sometimes people come up with a question, and it's not an unreasonable question, but you're not sure. Is that something that qualifies for us? Is that something we're allowed to do? And then you get to go dig. So if you've read corpora, multiple times, then you have an idea at least of where to start looking for, okay, can I do this or can I not? In addition, having friends who have been there and done that before helps a lot as well. There have been multiple occasions where I've sent a message to Pug or to Brian or Nicolette and said, they want to do X. Is that, I'm not sure if that's allowed. It sounds funky, but what's the answer here? And yeah, exactly. As Brian just put in the chat, does a cow fall under our insurance policy? Depends on where the cow is being used or sitting or whatever. It's one of those that you need to have more data, and then you can figure it out. One of the things that we've ended up having to do over the last several months is there's been the wonderful balancing act with Pug doing all the work he's done to try and get the reopening, plan in place, which most people saw that and said, reopening plan, that means you guys are going to start doing practices right away, right? No, that was never what it was for. What the idea was to find a pathway so that we possibly could. And Pug said from day one, if you have questions, ask him, and this is his project and he's working on it. And then Pug would tell me that nobody talked to him. I got yelled at a lot because apparently it was all my fault. And it was like, wait a minute, talk to him. But you end up, you have to figure out where your lines are. Is this a Seneschal issue? Is this a marshalate issue? If it is a marshalate issue, then I don't deal with this. I send it over. If it's a ANS issue, the questions have been, when are we gonna, if we're going to allow marshalate stuff, why aren't we allowing some of the other stuff? Like ANS. Well, if Pug is running the marshalate stuff, then you should talk to the ANS minister. Hey, go talk to John. And send people to go talk to Sir John, because that's his job. And we, the biggest thing I have seen, again, I will say it again, have decent people you trust. Be able to go and know that if I have a question, if there's a weirdness with the marshalate, I'm absolutely comfortable going, hey, Pug, can you deal with this? Because I know he's going to deal with it. And if it does go beyond the scope, then one of the biggest strengths I think any of us can have is knowing when you're out of your own league and when you need to be able to ask for help. These last 6 months have been an amazing, and actually as of 2 days ago, it's 6 months. So yay, 1 quarter through. But it has been an absolute lesson in all the things I don't know about how the SCA works. And, being able to ask, other people has been amazing. And knowing that I have people I can delegate things to and I don't have to worry about it, that's, been needed. And I'm going to apologize if it sounds like I'm sort of babbling a little bit. on this. Honestly, and I don't have another way to phrase this. It's bad enough being told that, that hey, you're now going to be Kingdom Seneschal, you have a week's notice, go. And that, that's nature of the beast, you deal with it, and it's okay. But let's be honest, the last 5 months have been a nightmare for all of us. Be Kingdom Seneschal for the very first time, go in and no warning, then deal with a pandemic, then deal with racial and whatever communications going 6 ways from Sunday, and people deciding that all of these things that normally we deal with in the mundane world, now we're going to bring all of them into the SCA, whether you like it or not. These last 5 months, I joke that I did theater long enough and I can play. I do a lot of the things I do, and I can be as a decent as a herald as I am, because I deal with improv. What's the situation? Okay, how do we deal with it? Being Kingdom Seneschal was not supposed to be unlimited improv. That was not what I signed up for. But that's been the nature of the beast, and we deal with it. The other Kingdom Seneschals have been amazingly helpful too, because we're all in the same boat. And so periodically, we have our group that we all talk on, and periodically one of us will come on and say, I got no clue. What do I do with this? And the support has been amazing, and we try and make it work from there. What I would say normally, my impression, having had a couple of friends who were Kingdom Seneschal and watched how they function, normally it's basically your job is to do the paperwork. Make sure that legally the SCA is doing what it's supposed to. My local Seneschals once a month fill in their forms and fill out their reports. It's a lot easier these days because it's all online, and they fill out the form and they hit send, and it automatically goes to the regionals. Once every 3 months, the regionals take all their forms and they fill out another form and they hit send, and it all comes to me. And once every 3 months, I take all of the regional forms and I put them all together and I fill out another form and I hit send, and it goes to society. And that's, as far as the major parts of what you're doing, that's the big thing, is make sure you get your paperwork done. You get yelled at if you don't. It's all the other stuff that doesn't come under a designated here's what you're supposed to do that gets weird. The crown is generally, they're the cheerleaders. They're the church, and they're the moral leaders of the kingdom. The Seneschal is the state. The Seneschal is the one who makes sure legally we're doing what we're supposed to. We're not violating mundane law. We're not violating corpora. Somebody does something stupid at an event, the cops show up. Seneschals are the ones that get to go talk to the police. Depends on which Seneschal is there, who is the one that ends up talking to them. If there's an actual issue, as we've seen, if somebody's being a twit, and that's, we'll just leave it at that, then, it's the Seneschal is the one who gets to fill out the paperwork. The crown issues things like banishments and sanctions. Seneschal is the one who actually fills out the paperwork, sends it up to society, and makes sure it's official. In our kingdom, the crown's word is law, to a point. Every now and then, you get to look at the crown and go, yes, I understand your majesty, but no, you can't do that. And 99% of the time, I'd say, crowns go, oh, okay, well, if I want to do something like that, how can we do it and not, A, piss people off, B, break the rules. Every now and then you get a crown who decides to be weird. Luckily, I've only had to deal with 2, and neither of them have decided to do that. But, it is the nature of the beast. Sometimes you get to deal with those ones. At that point, then it becomes, then it becomes more of a, you talk to society, you say, okay, my crown's doing this, what do we do? Otherwise, a lot of what you end up doing is you get to play peacemaker. So-and-so doesn't like so-and-so because they were mean. And the Kingdom Seneschal is the one who gets to, either you get to, or you get to direct, one of your deputies, or you assign someone to be a deputy to go talk to the aggrieved parties and see if you can have people make peace. If we can do it without people officially, lobbying, bullying complaints or harassment complaints or whatever, we try and do it that way, and we try to do it in the middle of the street. What's the old saying? Don't do it in the middle of the street and scare the horses. We try not to air our laundry in public if possible. Sometimes, not possible. Sometimes something happens and everyone sees it, and so unfortunately, therefore, that means you get to deal with it in public. And oh joy, it's fun. Like I said, the last couple of months. But beyond that, you as Seneschal, other duties. In the next couple of days, I get to put the schedule together for Roundtable, which is our once every 6 months business meeting. And I've written out letters to all of my greater officers of state, and they have sent information in as to what classes / meetings they want to hold. As it was pointed out to me today by my Earl Marshal, not all of them are meetings, or not all of them are classes. Just because it says class doesn't mean anything's getting taught. Maybe it's a meeting and you're just going over things. So we just phrased it poorly, but all the stuff. And so the next couple of days I get to put that together and then get that published. It is up to the Kingdom Seneschal to figure out where we're doing red tape. This time, virtual. There's gonna be a lot of Zoom meetings in a week and a half, guys. Oh joy. But you make it work. As far as meetings and stuff, one of the things actually that I've ended up having to do over the last 5 months is figuring out where we can do things if we want to do official business. What qualifies as official business? The way Corpora was actually written out, back in January, you had to do official things like awards or announcements for the kingdom had to be done in a court. Definition of a court was you're at an event, everybody's in the same room, the herald says now opens the court of. Well, obviously, since March, we haven't been able to do that. So there was a big thing with various kingdom seneschals reaching out to Corpora and saying, to corporate and saying to the society seneschal and to the board of directors, okay, what are we allowed to do? Are you going to give us variances? Are you going to allow us to do things like this? And that's how Onsor was able to do, the courts that Christiana and Sven did before they stepped down. We were able to do our coronation, where Jason and Margarita stepped up. We made sure we had specific permission, and we had to go through the whole thing of, if we're allowed to do awards, what awards are we allowed to do? Peerages. Peerages have to be done a certain way. If we're doing them virtually, how do we do this? Someone was knighted. Okay, well, it's not in Corpora that if you're knighted, you have to do a last unanswered blow. But every single knight in Onsura really didn't like the idea of a knight being made and not being smacked. And so we had to figure out how we could do that. It's been a really interesting, lesson in, again, improvisation, making it up on the fly. Okay, there have been a couple of things where we've done things in our courts, or we've had Onsur has done things that flat out I admit freely. I went for the idea that it was much easier to get forgiveness than it was to get permission. If society doesn't like it, okay, they can tell me afterwards. But hey, guys, it already happened, so oh well. I think that if you want to be a seneschal, I think that it's a really good idea to start as a local and get an idea of how being a seneschal actually works. Do as I say, not as I do, because I was never a local seneschal. I was a regional seneschal. But there's a very big difference between those two. Regionals, again, is mainly doing a lot of paperwork and then putting out fires periodically when things blow up. But you don't have, as a local seneschal, there's a lot of day-to-day stuff that local seneschals deal with that Kingdom Seneschal also deals with on a different scale, but the regionals really don't have to deal with it on that level. It's a different, again, it's a difference of scale. I think if you are a local first, you get a little bit of an idea of what the day-to-day stuff can be, just to make it a lot bigger. You know, Brian has been amazing as my ER deputy. I've threatened him that I'm going to drop dead. His wife then threatened me that she would find a voodoo priestess and bring me back. I was not allowed to die. But at some point down the road, I'm going to be looking for another ER deputy who's somebody who wants to, you know, be the next one. Brian's done this already, and I don't think I could pay him. I don't think there's enough money on the planet to pay Brian to become Kingdom Seneschal a second time. He's not Modius. He's not that weird. But you know, if people are interested, let me know. I'll be more than happy. And you know, I desperately want whoever takes over for me to have more experience and more training for what they're getting into than I got. It is one of the, for Onstiora, another big thing that we get to deal with is Onstiora, because we have Gulf Wars. That means we get to deal with negotiations, we get to deal with planning, all of the stuff that happens behind the scenes for Gulf Wars. If you are dealing, if you're in a different kingdom, it might be different. If you're the East, if you're in the Mid-Realm, if you're Uppermark, you get to deal with Penzik. You know, that's going to be a huge chunk of what you're in charge of. For us, it's Gulf Wars. There's some stuff with Penzik, but it, you know, as when Hug became the Earl Marshal and then I became the Kingdom Seneschal, we sort of joke. You know, if at Gulf Wars, if something goes wrong, there's a good chance I'm probably going to have to do something. But at Penzik, if something goes wrong, more than likely Hug's going to have to deal with it because it'll probably be something with a marshal and he'll have to deal with it. If something goes wrong at Penzik and I have to deal with something, things have gone very, 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 very wrong. You know, Maeve, you got to deal with something, or you know, somebody, you know, for the Mid-Realm will have to deal with something, but not me. That's not, you know, not my circus, not my monkeys. But it is, you know, for Gulf Wars, there's negotiations of the Gulf Wars Treaty and Gulf Wars Charter, which are two different things. The treaty gets signed every 4 years. Hey, guess what this year was? And it was supposed to be signed at war. And well, then it didn't happen. So then all of those crowns stepped down, or at least half of them did, of the 4, because we sign it, Primaris signs it, Glenavon signs it, Meridier signs it. And then it's time for, hey, we're already good to go. Let's do this again. And we've got half of the crowns are new ones. And they never saw this treaty before that they were being told that they had to sign. So basically we got to start over again, except for we didn't. It was weird. You know, but there's things like that that you got to deal with. When new policies come out from corporate, you get to deal with them. The big ones lately, you know, last couple of years, we had the bullying harassment policy. Now we have DEI, you know, the diversity and inclusion things that have been going on. And it's up to the Kingdom Seneschals to make sure that that stuff gets rolled out correctly. Yes, I have a DEI officer in the kingdom, and Renee's done a great job. But when people don't like it or people think it's weird, they don't go yell at Renee. They come and yell at me, and we deal with it that way. And so it's, you know, trying to keep up with what's going on, who's going next, who's doing what next. I joke, but this is actually on some levels one of the most satisfying things I've done. It's frustrating as hell to say that the last, you know, 6 months have been absolutely obnoxiously frustrating is one of the great understatements I think I'll ever make in my life. But on the other hand, you know, you get to be the one in charge of making sure things keep working, that we're all still here. And right now, since we can't see each other face to face, things like this are what we've got. You know, we've had a big lesson in the last 5 months that electronic media and Facebook and Zoom and whatever, you know, the SCA liked to pretend it didn't really matter and it didn't exist. And then 5 months ago, we all went to hell. And to be blunt, if there's no Zoom, if there's no Facebook, if there's no electronic media, at the current moment, the SCA doesn't exist at all. And so we've been, I've been amazed watching as various things, the virtual academy for service people that Baroness Cat has put together, the virtual academy of the rapier that got started by Mistress Rhiannon here in Onsura, that has now become this worldwide thing. This is amazing to me. The courts that have been run by crowns and local baron and baroness and stuff, ours or others. I've had a lot of fun going and watching, Meridiers do their courts, or Atlantia do their courts, or the East, or Ontier, or whatever. Because hey, I miss court. God, I never thought I'd say that. I miss court. But I love interkingdom anthropology, and it's really neat to see how they do it other places. It's like, oh, that's kind of cool. They do it that way. And then periodically I'll go find a friend who lives in that kingdom and go, you guys do this in court. Why? What is that thing for? And then they explain it, and it's like, oh, that's a really cool thing. Never would work here, but that's really cool that you guys do that. Or every now and then it's like, oh, that's really cool. I should talk to our crown. That's a neat thing. We might want to try and do that. And it's a really good, the interweaving of stuff has been really wonderful to watch. But to be blunt, we're making it up as we go. We're really in a situation of where we've never been, and no one's ever been here. And so, on the one side, when Kat asked me, "Hey, do you want to teach this class on how to be a kingdom seneschal?" my initial reaction was, "I don't know how to be a kingdom seneschal. Why are you asking me?" Kat, can you, in the chat, Maeve from the East had a question about the virtual academy. Can you, there you go. Coolness. But thank you. But, we are, right now, I feel that my biggest job is to make sure that when we are all back to being able to see each other, because I have to believe we're going to get there. Because if I don't, then I'm going to go walk in front of a bus. But my duty as the Kingdom Seneschal, as far as I'm concerned, is when we're able to see each other, there's still something to do, that we still exist, that Onsura is still a thing, and that we can go and, see each other again, and have events again, and have courts again. I want to see my friends, called into court and recognized because they've done really cool stuff. I want to be able to go and have tournaments and watch pageantry and skill and hell, I want to pick up my sword again. Damn it, I miss hitting people. But if I look at it from the point of view of, if I don't do my job, then that's not an option, and things could explode completely, and we don't get to do this anymore. And I'm really lucky. I've had some amazing people who went before me. I talk about on the rapier field, the whole the MOD versus the White Scarf. If we see further, it's because we stand on the shoulders of giants. And if I'm successful as a Kingdom Seneschal, it's because I've got all these people that I can lean on and who did it before me, who have been amazingly helpful, who I can go, what the hell's going on here? Or sometimes it's just, oh my God, I can't believe these idiots did this. And we all jokingly say, we pat each other on the head and go, no, it'll be better. And by the way, let me mail you booze. And people have mailed me booze, thank you. And I think it was Maeve that you sent the trash fire. Yes, Maeve sent me a wonderful thing. It's a small dumpster that's on fire. So it sort of says the entire view of the universe right now. But I look at it when Pug was the Kingdom Seneschal, when Brian was the Kingdom Seneschal, when Connell was the Kingdom Seneschal before. Richard, I didn't know you that well before. Sorry, but I'm going to go on the guess that a lot of what you guys did is was the basic stuff, and you didn't have to be cheerleaders a lot. I mean, I remember watching, dealing with Pug, dealing with the Western region and all of that. Cheerleading was not exactly what he was doing. Brian, with some of the issues he had to deal with, was cheer. Because of these last 5 months, that's become part of what I end up having to do. The Crown has been fabulous at it. Jason and Margarita have been absolutely wonderful, making sure that people know we're still here, that we are still a kingdom, that we still have a place to go, and that we are still a family. But expecting them to do all of it right now when the only thing they can do is send messages out and hold virtual courts every now and then, that's not fair to them either. And so I've done some stuff where I send out things saying, hey, Anstiora, we're still here, we're still friends, we're still family, let's go, yay us, and luckily I'm enough of an extrovert, or at least I'm an introvert who pretends he's an extrovert enough, that's not horribly bad for me to do. But I could see that if you were more of just an organizer and that's all you wanted to do, having to go be a cheerleader every now and then when that's not what you signed up for could be a little more amusing. That's mainly what I've been up to and what I have seen as the job. Pug, Brian, Richard, Maeve, maybe a different, if anybody has any comments they want to make or things they want to add, please do so.
Yeah,
Avery,
one
I
of the
think-
things is
Oh, go ahead.
checking group health and making sure it's up to snuff. That was one of the big challenges I dealt with during my tenure.
Yes, thank you for mentioning that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with Pug. And you've, Avery, have really had something unique happen that no one has ever had to deal with before. And I think you're doing a great job. But I think ours, in my time, mine was pushing a lot of paper. Very few things were electronic. It was just in the beginning stages of roundtable and things we're doing. Everything was on mailing lists or email, just beginning. And so I think in a lot of ways, things have gotten easier for you, which is great. I'm glad to hear it because it was hard put back then to manage all that paper all the time.
I don't even want to think about what this would be like if we didn't have, the Google Forms and the electronic stuff that we've got. My thanks, to put it as nice as I can, to the Kingdom Web ministers and those who have come before me who set everything up. Oh dear God, thank you, because I would run my head through a wall, and it's the nicest thing I can say about it, if we had to do it all by hand and type it out in paper. Brian, any observations?
Yeah, I can mostly echo what people have said. It's a lot of really just odd paperwork, having to deal with waivers, dealing with the calendar. And I know neither Pug nor Richard, if I recall correctly, had to deal with background checks. Was that something that you did, Pug?
I was the first Seneschal that had to deal with them.
Okay, I couldn't tell if it was just after. I couldn't remember if it was just after you. But yeah, having to deal with the background checks and all of that stuff. Most of the time people focus on the really salacious stuff about, getting out, bad actors and sanctions and all that stuff, which it can be really interesting and sometimes really heartbreaking. But by and large, there are times when I check the case in email and I'm just like, nothing's happened. Nothing's on fire. I'm going to leave and see in a half hour what's exploded.
Yeah. There was a point about a week and a half ago where I jokingly sent an IM to Brian going, hey, guess what? It's been 3 days and nothing's blown up. And Brian's like, be quiet. don't tempt it. But
give it time. It will come back.
Oh, yeah. But I mean, especially these last 4 or 5 months, there was a point there where I had a meeting, a Zoom meeting, a phone call, or something explode every single day for 3.5 weeks straight. And it was just one thing after another, Her Majesty got pretty tired of me going, "We need to talk," and she'd go, she'd respond back, "Really? Why? God damn it!" And I mean, she was a lot more polite than that, but I mean, it just got to the point where it was like, "Really? Here we go again," And then things sort of calmed down, and you don't want to tempt the fates, but on the other side, it's like, yay! It's been quiet for 3 days. I'm gonna have a celebration drink or something, But
you can get it.
yeah, exactly. But I think that one of the things that
And his internet.
I was going to say, I think we lost him.
I mean, I'm all for dramatic pauses, but I think that's a bit much.
Yeah, Avery has by far had the worst tenure as far as surprises. Even with mine having the Refi Crown tournament, the only time in our history, that's nothing compared to a pandemic.
I would agree with that. Yes.
Yeah, I've even told Avery the not fun 7 months of my first 7 months of my tenure was pretty terrible, and it was like everyone was trying to tear each other apart. But no, Avery had it worse.
Yep.
I do joke,
Nope, he's gone.
my way of dealing with things is that
Okay.
is it working? Sorry guys, my internet connection sucks.
We can hear you.
Okay, good. It is, I joke about things because that's my coping mechanism. And I joke that on my
Avery, if you can hear us, we're laughing.
That's
You're cutting
hilarious.
out again.
His
sorry.
coping mechanism is to just have bad internet.
Yeah, there you go. I'm actually surprised it made it this far without any issues. Is it still there?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're still here.
Yeah. So yeah, my achievement has a crest of a raven, and I'm now going to have a raven with a plague mask on it because I think I deserve it. And I'm seriously considering figuring out somewhere to put a guillotine on it, but that's okay.
No.
Yeah, actually, I was thinking an executioner sword because guillotines are post-period. But yeah, it is. It is in some ways. I think this is the most satisfying thing I've ever done in the SCA on some levels. It is by far the most frustrating thing I've ever done in the SCA. But I do think it's worth it. I think that when I was considering putting in for it, I went to a bunch of friends and people I knew who had been Kingdom Seneschals or were Kingdom Seneschals, whether it was in Kingdom or out, and said, all right, what am I getting into here? And every single person I talked to was absolutely wonderfully helpful and brutally honest. I joked that Brian was the only one who told me the truth because Brian looked at me and said, "It is always a dumb idea to be the Kingdom Seneschal." But it is a dumb idea, and it's a fabulous thing. There's some really cool things, that as Kingdom Seneschal, hey, you get to be the one who helps make this work. On some levels, I do compare it, and I've talked with some. It's like being able to be crowned, only you don't get the really, really cool clothes or the neat hat at the end of it. There was the joke of, I already got a pelican. Why did I say yes to this? What the hell? It is, yeah, and the travel budget has been, you have to admit though, the travel budget in the last 6 months or 5 months has been great. It's a really long distance from my bedroom to where the computer is, but It's really cool. It's
What, oh, some wipes? I can bring wipes.
what's up?
Harry, don't play chicken in the hallway.
And somebody with something in the background. Anyways, but any other questions? No, we do. The Seneschal does not get a travel budget. The Crown gets a travel budget. Sorry. That was the joke that, the Seneschal is still expected to go to a bunch of things, but they don't get a travel budget. But luckily, for the last 5 months, travel budget's been real cheap. Of course, for the last 5 months, travel budget's been real cheap for the Crown too. But on the other hand, they've had to set up complete courts inside her living room, which has been pretty amazing. Anybody have questions? Ivo, go for it.
Yeah. Now let me preface this. This is a procedural question. I legitimately have no specific instance in mind. So if anyone gives me the side eye, I swear it's accidental. In an environment, especially in online, where everyone has an opinion, and the moment you state some sort of policy fact, you have 12 rules lawyers and possibly 2 or 3 attorneys who want to comment on anything that the kingdom says or does or whatever.
Yep.
Who is if you are in a situation where you are not confident in your interpretation of the law, like there's a question raised and you're like, this isn't my specialty, who do you go to for an authoritative, this is what the law means, or who do you fall back on to have authority, or are you just forced to win?
No. That's actually a really good question, because that has come up multiple times since I stepped up. It depends on what the question is. There are times where it's an interpretation of kingdom law that somebody's asking about. If that's the question, and I'm not sure, generally what I do is I will go to those people who, either my ER deputy, Brian, who's a former Kingdom Seneschal and happens to mundanely be an attorney, so that's useful, or Pug, another former Kingdom Seneschal, or Nicolette, Countess Nicolette, who's another Kingdom Seneschal, and also Nicolette is also mundanely an attorney. Because I have some connections, and friends, that one of the things that has made it so I've been able to do a lot of this is because I do play on an interkingdom level and I have friends all over the place. I've been able to ask certain things. I can go to the known world kingdom seneschals. We have our own little list that we get, and I'll ask all of them, and I'll say, hey guys, they're wanting to do this. Anybody ever had to deal with this one before? And worst case scenario, if we all come back with, I don't know, that's a new one, we've never had to deal with that before, then I send an email off, or I call the Society Seneschal and say, hey, at the current moment, Mike, soon to be Liz, is taking over. Here's the question I've been given. I don't have an answer for this. What is it? What does the SCA say we need to do? And we've actually I've had 2 occasions where I specifically just, I sent an email to Mike and said, I've talked with my former Kingdom Seneschals, I've talked with my ER deputy, I've talked with 2 attorneys, I've talked with a member of the BOD, because Duchess Margaret, Maggie, is a good friend of mine, and A, an attorney, B, former member of the BOD twice. Okay, so what do we do here? And Mike's been pretty good about giving you an answer, and sometimes it's been hilarious, because there was one question I sent to the Society Seneschal, and his response back was, I have absolutely no idea. Let me go look into that. And it was a few days later, and I got an answer back. But you try and figure out as best you can. But at the end of the day, if you're not sure, you ask Society, and whatever they say, it's their call. Hopefully, they give you a good answer. Unfortunately, every now and then, the Society's answer is, oh, well, you guys do what you need to do, just don't violate corpora and don't violate mundane law. Okay, that doesn't answer my question, guys. But, it is, that's the biggest one. And sometimes if you're not sure and you're not going to violate corpora, then that means I get to make up my mind. and therefore the interpretation is mine. And
Hey, Avery. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to
yeah,
interrupt
no
you.
problem. I see Anise had a
Anae, yeah, has a
Anae?
question.
Go for it. Ask away.
Okay, so the office of the Seneschal is very pervasive on every other office that's out there, and so pervasive on what we do and how we're structured. And you've been working with the other goofs, like the Earl Marshal and the Kingdom A&S minister. You're getting roundtable together. I'm wondering, what are your thoughts about cross-matrix communication at lower levels in groups and in regions, specifically if there's an issue with a group or the group health?
Yep.
I mean, they can also be good stuff too. So what are your thoughts about that?
Absolutely. I think that communication is the most important thing that we need to do, and we don't do it enough. And being able to ask, various people being able to ask each other, hey, how do we do this, whatever. When it comes into group health and questions like that, one of the things I try and do, if I can, is I don't want to have to step in. If the Kingdom Seneschal stepping in, then something's really gone wrong. We have a chain of command for a reason, and I've been really, really lucky. The 3 regional deputies I've got, Charles DeGray is north, Countess Torn is central, and Master Miles just stepped down as southern, and Mistress Beatrice has stepped in. All of them have been fabulous, and they've been really, it's been great that if there's a question, something weird happens in a group in Oklahoma, I can call Charles and go, hey, Charles, can you look into this? If it's somewhere, with all of the weirdness that's gone down in the last 6 months with Bonwick, and Baron and Baroness stepping down. We now have a new Baron, 2 Baronesses who have been announced but haven't been put in yet. But that entire process, Countess Torn has been amazing. Miles dealt with several issues that were, made things a lot easier because he was able to step in. Beatrice hadn't stepped in yet. She had been told by Miles, I think, 2 days ahead of time, that she was the choice and she would be taking over. And we had something come up, and she was it was more proper that she be the one who dealt with it rather than Miles. So she stepped in and dealt with it. And it was, she hadn't even been officially, I think we had put it out on the net the day before. She'd been told the day before, 2 days before, but it had been put out on Facebook and in the official announcement that Beatrice was going to take over for Miles the day before the incident happened. And I got to reach out to her and go, hey, can you talk to these people? And she handled it, and it was dealt with, and I didn't have to worry about it at all. Communication with your regionals is paramount. I said in a lot of ways that that local is closer to Kingdom than it is to the regional. Regionals, they got to do a lot of paperwork, but the regionals are a lot of the times, they're the ones who are doing your hands-on dirty work. They're the ones who are going because so-and-so in this group and so-and-so in this group don't like each other and they're fighting. The local seneschals usually try and help, and if they can't, then the next step up is it goes to the regionals, and they've got to go in and play peacemaker. And the communication, to go back to your question, the communication, that's one of the major things I look for in who I want as my regionals is, is this someone who can go in and talk to people? And are people actually going to communicate with them? I don't care if they're amazing at paperwork. If they suck talking to people, I don't want them there, because that is what, that's what we rely on. And because if something happens, and I'm just going to randomly, if something happens and Namron decides to explode for God knows whatever reason, and Charles can't make it so people play nice with each other, then I do get to step in. And the problem is, as the Kingdom Seneschal, my toolbox has really powerful tools in it. Unfortunately, it's got 2, and they both suck. It's it is, the only tools I have are hammers. and I'd really rather not have to use a hammer if I don't have to. And if people can actually get along and do things nice together, then we don't have to break out hammers. I remember when Pug was Kingdom Seneschal, was right when Gwyneth and I became Baron and Baroness of Brindalot. And as B&B, it was amazingly useful to have the Kingdom Seneschal as a member of my own household, because when weird stuff happened in the barony, I could go to the official, okay, law, what's going on here? What am I allowed to do? And it's been a little bit interesting. There's been a couple of times since becoming Kingdom Seneschal, with Pug being the Earl Marshal, that we've reversed gears on this, where he's come to me and said, okay, this is a marshalate issue, but Seneschal needs to make a statement in here. Being able to work with your officers, whether they're your regionals, whether it's your other greater officers of the state, talking to people, communication is ungodly important. I try to encourage local groups. If one local group's having an issue, if I know I've got another group that has dealt with that issue before and figured out a path, point people at each other. Try to make it so cross contamination. I don't know. But cross communication happens so that you're not reinventing the wheel every time. It's Group A has dealt with this issue successfully. Make sure groups B, C, D, and E know about it, because they will have to deal with it at some point. I know that was sort of a rambling answer, but Anae, does that answer your question?
It does. I mean, I guess I have a follow-up.
Go for it.
When regionals, especially, talk to each other cross matrix, so your herald's talking to your seneschal's talking to your treasurer, etc. How does that affect at least the seneschal from your point of view? Does it make it easier from the standpoint of duties and reporting? Does it actually enrich them in that they know what the group health is going on, or if there could be potential problems, or even awesome things that, hey, Namron is doing this great thing and they're getting a lot of newcomers and stuff, and does that make you want, should the regional at that point be sharing with other groups?
Yes, very much so. As an example, I can do this as on a kingdom level, but it applies on lower levels as well. When Pug came up with the idea of trying to figure out some way that we could make a plan for restarting practices and reopening things, whether it was possible or not, at least to figure out what the plan was, he did it specifically as a marshalate thing, because, well, he's the Earl Marshal. But the first thing he did was he came to me and said, hey, this is what I'm working on. Let's make sure that anything that he's doing that applies to the marshalate also is okay under the seneschalate as well. And so, the entire process, as far as the numbers are concerned and the actual, data that was used, I admit freely, that's all Pugs. He did all that work. But as far as the implementation and where it went, as far as, how it was rolled out to the kingdom, various groups were told what they could and they couldn't do. We had the one test practice that happened with Namron and Beazencourt to see if this would work at all, period. That was all completely done jointly between the marshalate and the seneschalate, so that we made sure we were all on the same page. And a lot of people, I got yelled at because I can't believe you're willing to do this, and then when we shut everything, we've said groups aren't allowed anymore because we had the spike come back. The fact is, that means that the plan worked exactly like it was designed to. When things got bad, we went, okay, then no. But without having the data, we didn't know where we were going to be. By collecting the data, we were definitively able to say, yes, this is possible. No, this is not. And that was a joint effort between the two groups. As far as when we have different groups doing things. Perfect example, LC last year was doing some fabulous stuff with their Newcomers Guild. They were doing, Facebook meetings. They were broadcasting them, across anybody from anywhere in the kingdom or the known world could log in and could watch their Newcomers Guild do their classes and stuff. And if I understand right, I think Moonshadow did some based off of that idea and then ran with their own direction of how they were doing it. But they went to LC and said, how are you guys doing this? What are you guys doing here? And then they did their own spin on it. But it was that interconnection, the communication between the two different groups of, hey, that's a cool idea. Let's try it this way. I know on the society level that there have been things where, like when Pug gave me the here's the data, here's how all this works, he rolled it out to the society marshal, Earl Marshal's list. I sent it over to the Kingdom Seneschals, and if you look at what Meridies has done as far as their reopening plan, about 90% of it is ours. They changed some minor things here and there, but it was that cross communication that made it so it was possible. And I know, I sent it over to the East, and I know you guys took a look at it and then went, okay, we're going this direction instead. But it was that whenever Eldemir did theirs, we definitely looked at it and said, okay, what's Eldemir doing? Eldemir is weird because they're Canadian, so they're different laws. Mundanely, they have to do different things. With the East, you got to deal with both because you guys cross a border, so they have to deal with we can open here. Well, we can't open in Canada because Canada says you have to do X. Or wait, we can do these things in Canada, but we can't do them in the United States because the U.S. says you can't do this. So luckily we're Texas and Oklahoma, and for all intents and purposes, there's really not much difference between them. But as far as the rules and such, but definitely, I highly encourage people to talk. I highly encourage communication. If you have something that's working, reach out. If you are a seneschal and you're having issues with something and you're not sure if it really, talk to your local Knights Marshal, talk to your hospitaler, talk to your B&B if you're, and get feedback, because somebody may have just a different view on it. They may see it from a different perspective, and it may make it so you go, oh yeah, I can do it like that instead. Talk to, if you're a seneschal in one group and you're having an issue, talk to the neighbor group. I've gone to, when I was regional, there were several times where I would reach out to the central regional seneschal and go, hey, what's going on here? But in addition, I also did, bye, Maeve, take care. But there were also times when I was regional, I did the same thing I'm doing now. I would reach out to Mathonwi, who was a former Southern Regional, and say, hey, when you were regional, did you have to deal with this? And use the, I hate to phrase it this way, but you have friends and acquaintances and people you've worked with, use those connections. And I don't want to say use people, but damn it, yes, use people. I know that when I stepped down as Kingdom Rapier Marshal, there were multiple occasions where Donovan, who was next, or even Mateo, who was after Donovan, reached out to me and said, hey, there's a weirdness here. Did you have to deal with X? Same thing applies. And so, yeah, yes, you asked a question I could have answered in 3 sentences, and I talked for 10 minutes. Sorry. It's nature of me. Anybody else have any other questions? I know that I just sort of rambled on about it on some of this, but the idea, to boil it down is A, communicate, B, whatever you think it's going to be, it's not. And C, make sure you've got a support group and make sure that you can, have some people that you can talk to. And the most important one, even, yes, definitely. I agree with Mafanwi, what she put in the chat. If you didn't have a relationship before, well, now's a good time to start one. Reach out, say hi. I've made some amazing friends because of this, because I was willing to say, hey, you've done this. What do you guys do with this one? And if you can, try and step in, and be a deputy, volunteer to help beforehand so you get an idea what you're walking into. Hopefully whoever takes over after me doesn't have to deal with this.
So Avery,
Yes.
How does Crown Tournament work?
I don't know yet. Oh, how is it supposed to work? That's a different question.
That's
Avery?
fair. That's fair.
Okay, so how it's supposed to work is the Crown puts together, what their requirements are, and they actually did this before everything went to hell in a handbasket, or as things were going into hell in a handbasket. Jason and Margarita put together, these are their requirements, these are what they're going to do. They sent it to me. And they posted it on Facebook and sent it out to the Kingdom email list and everything. I sent it out to Facebook and the Kingdom email list and everything. And we officially announced this is what's going on. Depending on the Crown, in this case with the current one, the current Crown and what they are expecting for their tournament for their heirs, they require a letter of intent. And there is also the requirement that we have a Google form set up, and if you want to enter a Crown tournament, you must register before a certain date. There have been Crowns before who said you can sign up the day of, but in this case, we have a Google form out there. They have to go in, they have to fill it out, they have to say, yes, I qualify for this, 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 and this. It is then my job to go in and find everybody who signed up and go find their membership and make sure that when they say, yes, they are members, that yes, they are actually members. It used to be that you had to be a member at the time of Crown Tournament. Because of certain incidences in, luckily, other kingdoms, it is now the corporate policy that you must be paid through whatever would be the end of your reign in order to be allowed to fight in Crown Tournament. So if let's say it's a normal situation where we had Crown Tournament last week, and they would be stepping up in October, stepping down in May, then they must show proof that they have membership through at least the end of May, or at least the second week of May, which if you have membership through May, that it goes through the end of the month. But that's that requirement. There is also the requirement that is in Kingdom law that you must have held an actual office. And the current Crown is actually holding people to that. If you want to fight in Crown Tournament, then you actually have to have held an office, and being deputy to somebody's deputy doesn't count. No, you actually really have to have done work. So it's my job. On the form, they ask, have you held an office? And you actually got to say which one it was. And then it's my job to go make sure that, yes, they actually did.
So Avery, on the office requirement, just a question. Is there a time limit? So did you serve in office 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 10 years ago?
My understanding is that there is that if you were a local Knights Marshal in 1997 for 2 years until 1999, that counts. You have held an office.
Okay, all right.
Now,
just checking.
The Crown can decide differently. Everything is always on unless the Crown decides something else. But
further question on offices.
Yes.
Traditionally, I think it's supposed to be a warranted office. I mean, personally, I've held a local MOAS position. I've held a local financial committee position, which didn't actually report, and now I'm a deputy to the Earl Marshal. My understanding is only the local MOAS position would count. Is that correct? Nope.
No.
Pug's,
you're deputy. You're warranted under me.
Okay. I'm important.
Yeah.
Yeah. The right now the position you are holding right now as Marshalate Secretary is a Kingdom level office. You are a deputy to the Earl Marshal, but as far as I'm concerned, if somebody were to say, what level of an office is this? You are not a local, you are not a regional, you are responsible, you are at a Kingdom level.
Interesting. Thank you.
Yep. And as Brian pointed out, it is a requirement that you must have held said office for at least a year. Whatever you're going to use as.
And not 4 offices for 3 months.
Right. It must be one office for 1 year. And then at Crown Tournament, I'm not sure because again, haven't gotten to do it yet. But my understanding is that it's my job to just verify when people show up, verify their information. I'm going to have the big book with everybody in it, and we'll figure it out from there. But that's as far as I know. Unfortunately, some things I will hopefully in the next 6 months I'll be able to answer them better because I will have actually been able to do them. And I'm sure Her Majesty is sitting there right now, as I said, 6 months, going, "Oh dear God, I hope it's more sooner than 6 months."
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, go for it.
And Avery, I'm hoping you can't offer an answer for this, but I'm curious from a personal experience standpoint to the past Kingdom Seneschals in this group.
Go for it.
I want to phrase this delicately because it could get ugly if I say this wrong.
Okay.
Did any of you burn any social bridges having to do your job? Did you lose any friendships, or do you feel like you burned political or social capital doing the right thing?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Pug did nothing. Everybody still loves Pug.
Right.
And Brian,
I
Brian is friends
did.
with everyone.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Honestly, just
It
like
can happen.
any position of authority, whether it's in the SCA or without the some mundanely whatever, that's the nature of the beast. There comes a point. Hell, I've lost friends because of things in the White Scarf Circle or in the MOD Circle or in the Pell Circle. If you are in a position of leadership, at some point more than likely there's going to come up something where if you're going to do your job, whatever it may be, you're going to piss somebody off. And sometimes it's a good friend. I would consider Pug and Mathonwe two of myself and Gwyneth's closest friends. Normally we do, when we're able to see each other, we do things together a lot. We've been very good friends for more than 10 years now. And there have been times where Mathonwe has looked at me and said flat out, "Avery, you're wrong." And on some of those, she was right. And on some of those, I still think she's wrong. But, nature of the beast. You try to make it so that it's a disagreement and nothing more. But every now and then, there are people who will insist on that because I or Brian or Pug or whoever has done something that, from our point of view, this is what my job requires me to do. They have decided, okay, you're now a horrible person. Okay, sorry. And it sucks, but we are theoretically a society based on honor. And if I have made a promise and I have made an oath to, I stole my oath of fealty from Pug. He did it first. The oath I give when I take my oath of fealty, if I'm allowed to use my own words, is I do swear I will do whatever is best for the kingdom, regardless of the cost to myself or anyone else. And if people can't understand that that's what you have to be willing to do, and they decide that they're not going to be your friend anymore because of it, sorry. But as being in this position, I made an oath that I'm going to do what's best for the kingdom. And sometimes,
I certainly understand the dynamic, and I guess I knew that was a possibility. I was just curious if it was as commonplace as the rumors have said, and it sounds like it is.
Well, it is and it isn't.
Yeah, it is a bit of a thing. My tenure was kind of odd. I mean, I dissolved 7 branches in a very short time period. And a lot of those people could not get over that. That said, the ones who are my friends, they've accepted it. They've gotten over it. They understand why it happened. They didn't like it, but they understand it's not my fault. And
Right.
so those friendships are just fine now, even though there was short-term challenges.
My
And-
term was quite a long time ago and involved friends crossing the line and reporting things that, as when they're talking to me as Kingdom is Seneschal, I could not ignore.
Mhm.
And sometimes, and that's the only thing I wanted to bring up, is that you have to be mindful that when your friends talk to you as Kingdom Seneschal, there are certain things legally
Yep.
that you must report no matter what, even though they're telling you something in the strictest confidence. You don't have a choice. It's a legal responsibility.
Correct.
And usually that never comes up, but it unfortunately it happened to me. And so anyway.
There was an occasion, there have been occasions where I've stopped somebody, and I mean, Pug could probably tell you exactly which one as far as he's concerned, but somebody says something. Well, we were doing X, and as Kingdom Seneschal, I've at least once, before everything shut down, we was at an event, I actually had to stop, look someone in the eye, and went, "You didn't actually just tell me what you just said, right?" Because, now in Pug's case, he said, "You didn't actually do that." And the person went, "Oh yeah, that's exactly what I did." God damn it. It's like, okay, now you got to deal with it. Sorry. But there are definitely moments where you have to make sure, okay, who am I talking with right now? Is this Sean? Is this Avery? Is this the Kingdom Seneschal? Which version of you needs to be there at that moment? I've had a couple of occasions where we were doing when Pug was first doing the and I keep going back to it, but it's because Pug and I have done a lot of work together as far as this is concerned. But when Pug was first coming up with the plan for the reopening and everything, there were a couple of times where we had some conversations where it was Pug and Sean talking about bouncing numbers off each other and figuring out how things work. And then there were some times where it was Master Phelim and Master Avery, Kingdom Earl Marshal and Kingdom Seneschal, who were having a discussion, and we needed to make sure that this was the official answer. This was not just, we're bullshitting here or whatever. There have been a couple of times where I've reached out when there's been a legal question, where I've sent a note to Brian, and the IM to Brian is, "Hi, I need to talk to my lawyer." And legally he's not my lawyer or whatever, but he gets what I'm saying at that point, that this is now, okay, this is an official conversation, this is where we're going. And
you couldn't afford me anyway.
No, I can't, I admit freely. But hey, I send you decent booze at least once, so that's got to count for something.
This is true.
And appreciated.
That's mine.
I think for me, the one thing that I'm taking away from, and don't get me wrong, all the commentary and all of the answers are very eye-opening, and I have no aspirations for Kingdom Seneschal, and this has not changed that opinion, but I think I better appreciate that it's a heavier burden than just paperwork and long nights.
Well, very much so. And going back, I go to your question specifically as far as this, when thing that I think all of us will agree on is that, yes, it does become an issue, but it's not that it's an issue every single day. I think, Pug had certain things because his actions and what happened when he was Kingdom Seneschal affected an entire region, that there were a large number of people who decided they felt a certain way very quickly. Whereas with Richard, it was, my understanding was that yours was a single individual who did something that made you have to act. So it was one person. My understanding, talking with people over the years, different Kingdom Seneschals, in Kingdom, out of Kingdom, whatever, is that generally you get one or two incidences during your 2 years. And it may be that it affects one person, and maybe it affects 3 people, or in Pug's case, an entire region, but generally it's a specific incident that's causing it to happen. And again, those are not common. The weirdness happens, but it's, I've been Kingdom Seneschal for 6 months now. I had a 3-week period where I dealt with 3 different people being weirdos and nuts and stupid, and I have to deal with it online, and it was just all right after another. I mean, Ivo, it's all your fault. It started on your page.
For the record, all right, hang on. Now that you mention it, I'm going to say it. I told the person who screen captured that not to display it until I had spoken with their excellencies of the resident barony.
Oh, I know.
I know, but someone's going to watch this recording, and I don't need the hate mail that comes with this.
No.
And I was online with you a half hour after it blew up.
Yes, you were.
Just to say, if there's anything I could do to help extinguish this before it goes nuclear, say your piece now, because I'm I'm happy to help.
Yep, not a problem. And so everyone knows with the recording, I'm just giving Ivo a hard time. It was not his fault. It just happened that the grenade got dropped in his front porch. But other than those 3 weeks, I can't say things have been boring because of the pandemic, but as far as other things are concerned, no, really, I didn't. Until those 3 weeks blew up, there were minor annoyances and minor disagreements, but that's called being alive. It wasn't anything weird. And then for 3 weeks, people decided to be strange, and we dealt with it. I got to do a lot of paperwork, but I'm hoping that this counts as, okay, I've had my explosions. I'm not holding my breath on them counting as these will be my only explosions.
Hey,
The
Avery.
good news is all of mine happened in the first 6 months.
Uh-huh. Oh, wait. As Kingdom Seneschal, not as Earl Marshal. I was like, wait a minute.
Correct.
So hopefully, we'll go from there. The next step is figuring out when and how we can figure out how to do a crown tournament at some point so that we can move on. Perfect example of a weird conversation I never thought I was going to have. Got to have a very interesting conversation at one point with Jason and Margarita, with the point of the conversation being, so if you guys end up having to be crowned for the next year, because they might, God, I hope not, and I'm sure she's sitting there right now going, oh dear God, no. But, but that is a possibility, and it's something that, we have to deal with. So we'll see where it goes. We'll see what we can do to figure out. On the good side, like I said, the Crown has been fabulous to work with. They've been amazingly helpful and supportive. Those around the Crown have been that is something that does need to be considered sometimes. When you're working with the Crown, is also all the people around them. Can you work with them too? And sometimes there's some people that make things more interesting than they need to be. Luckily with Jason and Margarita, okay, Vinny, maybe you got to smack him a little, but no,
He just
seriously,
likes it anyway, so
that's
it
true.
doesn't help.
But no, seriously, everybody's been amazingly supportive. I mean, hell, somebody sent me a goddamn bicycle, exercise bike, and nobody will admit it. It showed up on my doorstep 2 days ago. Seriously.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Hey guys, it is almost a half an hour after our scheduled time because it's 9:26. So we don't have to go if people still have questions, but I just thought I'd, give us an opportunity to wrap up if people are ready to do so. Do people still have questions that they want to ask while we have Avery here?
And if you come up with a question later, please feel free, drop me a note. I cannot promise I will promise I will answer. I'm not going to promise I will answer with something you might like, but I will answer.
That's legit. Well, thank you, Avery, so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. I know you're crazy busy and it, was an hour and a half out of your schedule. So I really appreciate it. And I appreciate everybody attending. And I hope everybody learned as much as I did, because I know there were lots of things discussed that I didn't think about. So,
Thank
and I
you.
will get the video posted for everybody tomorrow to watch. So
Thank you, Kat, for asking me. And
you're
again,
welcome.
everybody, like I said, I'm making this up as I go along. If people have suggestions, I'm more than happy to hear them. All right,
Sounds
everybody
good.
be safe.
Yep,
Bye,
you
thank
too.
you.
Everybody have a good night.
Good night, everyone.
Hi
Thanks.
guys, this was
Bye.
fun.